Welcome to the third video in Chapter 1 of this series. In this video, we will be talking about foreign trade under British rule. You will find that some of the information from this section will not be new to you, as we touched on some of the issues here in the previous video. Generally speaking, it's important to have a historical perspective in order to understand clearly what happened to foreign trade under British rule. Before Britain ruled India, India was very well known worldwide for its high level of craftsmanship of handmade goods. However, these types of goods took time to make and required skilled craftsmen, and the British government was not interested in promoting these efforts. Rather, they thought that extracting raw materials from India was of primary importance to them. Which leads us into the first topic: net exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. As explicitly mentioned in the previous video, Britain exploited India for its raw materials, namely raw silk, cotton, wool, indigo, and sugar. These raw materials were then turned into finished products, for instance clothing, and then sold back to India. Secondly, monopoly control. Let me step back and explain the term monopoly before continuing. A monopoly is a situation in which there is only a single supplier in the market. This means that all of the customers in a market are at the will of the supplier and have no control over the market conditions whatsoever. This fairly accurately sums up the relationship between Britain and India at the time of independence, as India was virtually completely under Britain's control, as an amazing 50% of its trade was conducted with Britain. To put that figure into perspective for you, today, India's top 15 trading partners make up 59% of its total trade. Put in other terms, India was basically under the direct economic control of Britain. Finally, in this section, we're going to talk about India's trade surplus. In case you don't know what a trade surplus is, it is the difference between a country's exports and imports. If a nation has a trade surplus, it means its exports are more than its imports. If it has a trade deficit, it means it imports more than it exports. For India at the eve of independence, they had a trade surplus. Normally, this might be considered to be something positive, but for India, this wasn't the case. India's raw materials were being exported to help the British gain from turning those raw materials into finished products that returned a higher margin. Moreover, many of these goods should have been used domestically to help the people of India instead of being exported. And finally, worst of all, this surplus generated by India was used to further British efforts, as opposed to being used to develop India's infrastructure. So what can we say in summary? Foreign trade in India at the eve of independence was basically entirely controlled by the British, with India exporting raw materials and importing finished products, while whatever gains India did make were just used to fund British endeavors.